Hi everyone, it's Mrs. McInnes here. Welcome to lesson 4 of our trig topic. So today what we're going to be looking at is using the sine rule again, but this time it's going to be for calculating an angle. So in our last lesson we looked at finding a side. This time we're going to use the same rule and we're going to look at how you find an angle. So it is the same rule as we used in the last lesson, so it's just on your notes here again. So A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. And it's going to be very similar working. It's just going to be a different unknown value that we're solving for. So let's go straight into an example here. So example 6, we have find the size of the angle labelled C. So first thing we do in any of these questions is label our triangle if it's not already labelled. So because I have a capital letter C already on my diagram, I'm going to make the side straight across from that a small letter C. And then the other two sides I can label as I wish. So I'm going to go for making this top angle A, and then the side straight across from that small a, and then the remaining angle at this side B, and then the side that corresponds with that a small letter B. So as we did last time, okay, you're going to take the 3 sections of your formula and narrow it down to 2 where you have the information that you need. So I'm just going to write this out down here. So A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. So let's look at what we have. So we're being asked to find angle C, so I need to find this part here, and I have the side straight across from that corresponds to make that a pair, so I've got the small letter C as well. And then the other piece of information I have is I have the angle at B, and I also have this side at B, so it's going to be B and C that I use. So effectively we can just forget about that first part. So let's fill in the information that we've got. So this is the exact same process as the last lesson. So for small letter B, it's 17. And then angle B is 40, so 17 over sine 40. And then small letter C is 25. And this time, because it's the angle that we're finding, this capital letter C is going to stay as a letter because that's what's unknown in this question. So again, we're going to cross multiply exactly the same as the last lesson, and I always tell you to start with the value that you're trying to find. So I'm going to multiply those two terms together first of all. So we're going to do 17 times sine C, and then multiply the other two terms. So sine 40 times 25. So we're trying to find this value here for C, so that's been multiplied by 17, so we need to divide by 17 on both sides. So we're going to get sine 40 times 25 over 17. Now when you type that into your calculator, you need to remember to keep your angle in a bracket, okay? Otherwise the calculator will maybe do sine of 40 times 25. It won't do sine of 40 and then times 25, so make sure you keep that nice and tidy, okay? So when you type this into your calculator, okay, you're going to get a big long decimal answer. So I'm going to write the first few numbers of this. So you get 0.9452, and it goes on and on and on. What I would tell you to do here is just write the first maybe 3 or 4 decimal places and then do your ... to show that that's a continuing decimal answer. Now we're trying to find C, and we know this is sine of C. So to find C on its own, this is the same sort of working you do when you're solving a trig equation. To get C, we would do inverse sine of our previous answer. So what I would ask you to do is keep that on your screen, on your calculator, and you would push inverse sine and then use the answer key on your calculator, okay? So inverse sine of the previous answer. That will put the full decimal value in your calculator into the calculation. It will make your answer the most accurate, okay? So that's really important. So here for your answer, when we round it, we're going to go for 71 degrees for that angle there. Okay, so very similar working to finding a side. It's just that last step of using inverse sine of your answer to get the angle. Okay, so very, very similar to the last lesson. So let's do a second example of this again. So example 7, find the size of the angle labelled at D. So here again, we need to label our triangle. So because we've got a letter D in the triangle, I'm going to make the side straight across from that a small case letter D. And then the other two letters are up to you. I'm going to go for A and B, but you can use anything you want. So let's go for A and B. So A there, and then a capital B and a capital B. So this time my formula will be A over sine A equals B over sine B equals D over sine D. It can be any letters at all, it doesn't matter. So let's look at the information that we have. So we are being asked to find angle D. So we'll highlight sine capital D. And we have this side that matches that straight across. So we have small letter D, so we can highlight that. And then we have the angle at A, so we can use that bit. And we have this side straight across that makes that appear. So we've got the small letter A. So we can actually just leave out the middle part, and we're going to use A over sine A equals D over sine D. So let's fill in the values that we have. So for small case letter A, it's 78. And then our angle at A is 53. So 78 over sine 53. And then small case letter D is 85. So 85 over, and it's angle D that we're looking for. So that's going to stay as a letter. Okay, next step again is the cross multiply, and start with the value that you're trying to find. So we'll do those two terms there multiplied first. So we're going to do 78 times sine D, and then the other two. So sine 53 times 85. Okay, and then we're trying to get sine D on its own, so that's been multiplied by 78, so we're going to divide by 78. So sine 53 times 85 over 78. And remember to put the angle in the bracket, close the bracket off to keep that correct on the calculator. So for this value here, when you type that into your calculator, we're going to get 0.8703 and so on. So write a few 3 or 4 decimal places and then do ... And then we're needing to find angle D. So we need to do inverse sine of that last answer. So 0.8703 and so on. So remember, you would do inverse sine and then use that answer button on your calculator to use that last answer, keeping it as accurate as you can. And then for our answer here, we get 60.49, so I would round that to 60.5. When it comes to finding an angle, you can decide how you want to round your answer. 1 decimal place is absolutely fine, or the nearest whole angle would also be fine. You'll be able to tell just by the answer you get what you think would be most appropriate, unless the question specifies the nearest angle or 1 decimal place. For your classwork, you can just decide what you feel more confident rounding to. So the questions I would like to do today are just very similar to these ones here. So it's from page 30 in the Unit 4 booklet. So question 1, A, B, C, D and E. And then question 2, I've chosen A, B, D and E for you to try, okay? So make sure when you're using the sine rule that you are looking for the 2 pairs of angles and sides. If you perhaps need to fill in that third angle, you can do that, but for finding an angle, you shouldn't need to do that, because you'll be given 1 angle and you'll be finding an angle. So in this case, you shouldn't need to do that. You'd only need to fill in that extra angle for if it's finding a side, but it's just good to remember that as we go through using the different formulas, all these kind of little tips on how to use the formulas and what information to use in the formulas. So for today, you'll be given 2 sides and you'll be given 1 angle and being asked to find an angle. So just make sure you're matching up the angles and sides correctly as opposite sort of values so that they're corresponding and it's the right ones you're using in the calculations, okay? So I'll be on the live call if you have any questions or you need any help. As I always say, if you can mark your work from the answers at the back of the booklet and then email me across photos of your work, I can check through it and make sure we're getting on okay with this as we go through. All right, thanks guys for listening, and I will speak to you on the Teams page. Bye.